Today on the CEO Barbecue, we're looking for gold and copper in the British Triangle of, no, in the, why not? The British Triangle of Golden Columbia. Why not? The Golden Triangle of British Columbia. We're doing that together with Kingfisher Metals. If you want a bullet point summary of this conversation and all the other CEO barbecues in your inbox once a week, go to resourcetalks.com and subscribe to our free newsletter. Now, the company you're about to hear from has paid us for the production of this video, which means that this is not research, it's an advertisement, and you should treat it as such. Research is conducted by reading the company's official filings, which you can find on setterplus.ca. And please only watch this if you absolutely know what you're doing. This interview is intended only for experienced junior mining speculators because mineral exploration, development, and mining is a very tough business where failure is the norm and should be the expectation. This is going to be a conversation that is general and impersonal in nature, containing forward-looking statements. I am not a licensed financial advisor, and my business sells content-producing services, which also makes me biased in multiple ways. So before continuing on, please talk to an independent investment advisor with a good long-term track record because your capital might be at risk. If you're not 100% sure you understand 100% of the disclaimers I just showed you, please go to the last section of this video and do not consume this content unless you fully understand and agree with everything said therein. That all said, Kingfisher is, of course, an exploration company. They're chasing, again, copper gold porphyries in the Golden Triangle of British Columbia with an almost 900 square kilometer land package, which I, by the way, visited last summer. So if you're new to the story, that video is a good starting point. I'll make sure to link it below this video. We did a whole blown documentary, if you will, on it. So Kingfisher is listed as KFR on the TSXV, and with just under 90 million shares outstanding and $23.5 million market cap today, this is a 26.5 cent stock, 52-week high, almost 50 cents, 52-week low, about 14 cents. Again, no long intro needed, so I'm going to shut up already and leave it all to you here, Dustin, and thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thanks, Antonio. Good to be on again with you.
Pleasure is mine, and although I am looking forward to the conversation, I'm going to start off with an annoying question, as per usual. But you've announced some results from this summer's drilling, which the market wasn't too happy about by the looks of the stock price, and we're now going from fall to winter here soon. So why would I want to hold your stock in the meantime?
Well, we still have we drill 11 holes and 2 failed. So there's 9, there will be 9 reportable holes, and we've only released 1 so far. And in addition to that, we did a lot of regional work, large scale mobile MT, so an airborne electromagnetic survey, but, a really large one, comparable to what was done probably in the Hercules area. Lots of IP, lots of soil sampling within this huge 12-kilometer long gold copper anomaly we have in the Hank Mary area. We filled in some gaps of probably up to a couple kilometer gaps were filled in. So we collected a lot of good information this year, and we've only released a fraction of like a minute fraction of it so far. I've seen some feedback on bullboards acting as though we've released everything and it's a long wait till next year, but that's not the truth. We've only released a tiny amount, and I think there's a lot yet to come. So that would be the argument for holding. Aside from that, I would hope that the value of what's already been turned up on this project and the strategic location of the project would underpin value of the company. Having such a large piece of ground in a highly prospective region where, M&A has happened, like Teck and Anglo, that new merged company would be our neighbor, and they've committed $750 million to our adjoining, the property that adjoins us. And there's a lot of gold on this project, and gold is doing incredibly well right now. And, in addition to what we have there, we still have our Gold Range and Tibbert project, which they would make a standalone portfolio in this market. And even what we drilled at Gold Range, grassroots exploration drilling back in 21, 22, those results I would imagine would do quite well in this market today. Brand new discovery of 40 meters of 3 gram, or almost 3 grams, up to 73 grams over a meter, numbers like that on a project that has no holding cost. It's 500 square kilometers and it's 100% owned. So there's a lot of inherent value here that maybe I'm not doing a good enough job of making the market recognize, but it's something I will be working on. But yeah, sucks seeing the share price go down. But we've only just begun putting information out, so lots yet to come.
I do want to talk about the gold projects toward the latter part of the conversation because I've been thinking with gold where it is right now, why not, revamp it or put some marketing behind. So we'll talk about that towards the latter part. Yeah, when's the rest of the assays coming in? Is it going to be hole by hole? What's the cadence? What do you expect there?
They'll be in batches, and I would expect fairly soon for the next batch, probably a few weeks, not months.
Okay.
So
Yeah. How's money for you after the program? Was everything on budget? How did that go?
yeah, it went slightly over budget, not due to execution of the field program, just in regards to there was a permit condition of fixing a hole that went artesian. What that means is a previous
Yeah.
historical hole hit a water table and was eroding the side of the slope. And we had a permit condition of fixing that. And it took a little more time than we had expected, which delayed starting drilling by about a week. So that was the only place we went over on our proposed budget. But otherwise, no, it was a well executed program. And in terms of cash, should end the year, I would imagine over $1 million in the bank.
Also, no need to like you've got plenty of runway to kind of pay the bills. Did you have any of the corporate bills that are kind of year end weighted where you're going to have to make a big payment or something like that? Or do you expect to not having to raise capital anytime soon?
We have no like immediate bills to be paid. I can't comment on other bills that might come up for various reasons, but no, yeah, we're in good shape in that regard. And yeah, no, we're fine in that regard.
Yeah.
And the in terms of raising money, like I have no idea when we're going to raise money. We've got we've got holes yet to come, and if we get a lot of love out of something, that might be an opportune time given the access, the availability of capital right now. But we don't have a gun to our head right now, needing to go raise money. So there's no immediate urgency, but obviously we have to raise money before next field season.
Yeah. Yeah. Shocker. That's not
Yeah.
okay, Dustin. You shouldn't be doing that. I hate dilution. Don't do that to me. Just drill for no money, please. Are you still opposed to the idea of a JV though?
Personally, I'm not huge on it. I've talked to some people including some shareholders, who some like the idea of it. A lot of the big money doesn't like the idea of it. Um, it, it's something like if there was something that made sense, we might go down that road. It would have to include a lot of money though being spent on the ground. But yeah, we're not moving towards that right now, despite being in discussions with quite a few different large corporates. I, we do have access to capital. You have to weigh that against dilution and risk and all these different things. So I think I'll just leave it at that.
I do want to ask essentially, well, how much money would you be looking for when you say you have access to capital and everything, it's within reason and dilution and everything, but we'll get to that once we're talking about this new porphyry target that you have now. Would you be opposed to the idea of picking up a project in a different jurisdiction to kind of balance out the seasonality of exploring in northern BC?
Um, Potentially, if the right project came in front of us, yeah, it needs to be as perspective in our eyes as what we have, and it needs to be something so it needs to be a creative. It needs to fit within our wheelhouse. We're not going to start looking for something that we're not experts in, because that wouldn't be improving the story for investors and increasing the odds of discovery. Obviously, I'm aware of the issues with having a seasonal drill play. So it's something we look at, but right now I like the Golden Triangle focus, and I think there's more potential deals to be done in the region.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's I'm not committing to doing anything.
You know, it's going to bring value to investors, a new antimony project, or maybe rare earths. I hear that's hot now these days
Yeah.
too.
Well, we actually happen to have some pretty good antimony grades on our Gold Range project.
That's
So
actually true. I keep forgetting about that. I think the market kind of keeps forgetting. I feel like sometimes, the market can kind of only understand one part of a story. And like for you, it's being porphyry, but it is much more. And I wanted to keep that for the latter part of the conversation. But talk to me about that. What is going on with the gold projects? Do you have any plans of doing something there anytime soon, or how do you see that?
so the last 2 years we have done soil and till sampling at our Tibbert project. It does have an annual spend requirement that's quite low, around 150,000, to maintain the tenures, because we haven't gone and done a big drill program to push those tenures out into the future. So we have not released that information yet. It's not drill results, and it's not our flagship, so I would deem it not material in that regard. We will be putting that out soon. Small team, you do have limitations on what you can do, and everybody's been focused on Highway 37. But over the winter, we'll put out some information on that, and probably tie that into a summary of updating the market on our Gold Range project, which we have not done any work on since 2022. But it is a highly prospective gold project, you know, that we own entirely and have zero holding costs. So it's value sitting there that it isn't really creating value for Kingfisher right now. So there is an intention of attempting to create value through that in some form. And I don't think we're going to go and drill there. But if somebody wanted to spend money there, or somebody wanted to acquire it, or there was an option to complete a spin out with the two companies, these are things we're going to be looking at over the winter here.
That's going to be an interesting conversation there in and of itself, maybe on the back of that news release. I do want to talk about more specifically about the drill results here, though. Just before I start asking about them myself, maybe though, what is the feedback that you've received from your larger shareholders in the back of those results? I mean, Ashwad, Crescat, Plethora, Deutsche Rohstoff, and I mean, you're the big money. What are they telling you about all of this?
Well, I would say, the immediate reactions I had at Beaver Creek when we released that first drill hole were actually surprised that the share price went down.
Hmm.
Um, that was a good drill hole. I think part of that might have to do with the fact that the intercept started around 330 meters, I believe. But we knew it was starting at that point, because we were coming into it from the side of the system and drilling through a barren hang wall. So, and it extended mineralization quite a bit further. So, you know, uh, I wouldn't say there was disappointment in that. I don't think the people that are really with the story, and then especially that came in on that financing, it's not like their expectations were something 10 times higher than that. I think retail might have had expectations quite a bit higher than that,
Hmm.
which isn't necessarily always realistic. And it's also just the first hole. But there was there was no anger or frustration. I'm sure there's some frustration with the way the share price is going now, but not with that actual result.
Hmm. What about corporately? I mean, you said some of them might like the idea of a JV, or any of them pushing for, an immediate capital raise, or doing something, picking up a different project or anything like that.
Um, no, no, I would say there's no pressure on any of those things. And as a junior CEO, you're always looking for capital. It doesn't mean you're pushing the
Yeah.
button on a financing, but you're always
Hmm.
trying to meet new groups and tell the story, and get support lined up for the future, which
Hmm.
is something obviously I am working on. And then, you know, other projects and whatnot. That's stuff we're doing confidentially and internally, looking at other
Yeah.
opportunities.
Any marketing trips or anything else planned in the meantime, as results is coming in?
I will be back. I'll be in Europe for the Precious Metals Summit in Zurich, and then I'll be at the one-to-one, and tying on some meetings in between those two.
Good.
So that will be the final trip of the year.
Yeah. Well, it's been a busy year for you. You just got married, I think. Congratulations, by the way. I don't think I've congratulated you on
Thank
camera,
you.
so I want to have it on record. Um, let's do talk about some of the technical aspects of it all then. And it's actually the last news release that caught my eye more than usual. I'd call it, but you say that this is hole 11. So yeah, highway and 25, and then 11, hole 11. You're interpreting as proximal margins of a porphyry core. What does that mean? What are you really seeing here?
Okay, so I'll give a little rundown on porphyry systems. So porphyry systems are cored by an intrusion, and the intrusion coming in at the beginning is going to be the highest temperature event. And as you grade out from a porphyry, you get lower temperatures the further you get away. And those different temperatures have different minerals that are indicative of that temperature. Like at a different temperature, different minerals form. And your copper and gold is going to be the best in the core of the system. And as you grade out, you're going to lose those metals, and you might even trend in towards, say, lead and zinc. And you'll have the copper minerals like bornite in the core of a system. If you have it, you don't always have bornite. GT Gold Saddle did not have bornite, and it still had good grades. We do have bornite, obviously, at Williams. So, anyways, as you get out, though, you don't have pyrite in the middle of the core. It's just the copper-bearing minerals like chalcopyrite, and then as you get further out, you get more pyrite, and then eventually you're just in pyrite. And so, what we saw on these holes were once we got into the system, it was all of a sudden you're seeing chalcopyrite. You're still seeing predominantly pyrite, but you're seeing chalcopyrite over 400 meters of core, where pretty much every piece of core you pick up, you can see chalcopyrite in it. And as you're trending towards the end of the hole, you're seeing that ratio change, where you're seeing a higher concentration of chalcopyrite relative to pyrite. You're still not into the only chalcopyrite or bornite zone, so you're not into you're probably getting into like the borderline ore grade on that. But a few things to point out. So that drill hole, maybe I bring up a slide here.
Sure.
We drilled downslope here, and we drilled into this chargeability anomaly. And just a little bit of reference here. So you've got a large chargeability anomaly here that really extends through, and then you've got a pipe-like feature coming up here, and this shoulder extends down here. And just for scale, that's beyond 1,500 meters wide there. And what you're seeing is very strong chargeability out here, and very strong chargeability out here, and then a slight decrease in the middle. And in a porphyry deposit, you've got these copper like minerals, chalcopyrite, bornite, and then you've got the non-copper bearing minerals like pyrite. Pyrite is more chargeable than chalcopyrite, and bornite's actually less chargeable than chalcopyrite. So what you would expect in the center of a porphyry is a response exactly like this, where you've got a little bit lower chargeability. It's still a chargeability anomaly, but it's a little bit lower, this area here, than the flanks, and the flanks should be higher chargeability. One caveat I'll say is that some porphyry systems can actually have a fair bit of pyrite with the chalcopyrite, and there could be enough copper in there to actually create ore. So there's a nuance to this. Every system is a little bit different. Either way, what we saw was a defined zonation of getting hotter in this direction. And I would point out that I don't think it's going hotter this way. I think it's going hotter this way. And what we're seeing over that length is actually representing. So we drilled 400 meters of seeing copper mineralization. That corresponds with actually a 200 meter lateral extent. And with some of these more alkaline systems, which Williams would be a good example of, but other examples would be Red Chris, Cadia, North Parks, and there's lots of other systems like this in BC. These more gold-rich alkaline systems, they often don't have a big copper halo effectively. Like at Williams, it's quite abrupt. You get into mineralization and you can have good grades, like 0.3, 0.4 copper, and it might only go for, 100 meters away, you're at negligible copper. And the fact that we're seeing this broad of a halo while not being in the core yet indicates a very large system, and the geophysics does back that up. So, that to me, on a kind of just on a high level, that's what excites me the most. What also excites me is seeing the vein intensity. We're seeing a higher degree of vein intensity than what we see at Williams within the drill core. And these veins are coming off the intrusion, but you're getting maybe little sniffs of intrusion. It's quite altered, so it's difficult to tell. But you're not in an intrusive core yet, and you're not in the potassic core yet. You do get veins with potassic alteration, but those are coming off an intrusion, and they can travel a ways. But it just indicates a very robust system. And our whole idea going into this region was, what is causing this massive gold anomaly here in this huge hydrothermal system? Is it Williams? We thought it could be, but we also came into this thinking there's probably either a cluster of Williams type deposits, or there's a unique larger system underneath Hank. And based on this one hole down here, I can't say if it's one, if it's one and there's going to be other ones, or if there's just one giant system there. It's way too early to say that. What I can say, though, is that we've proven that you can hide a porphyry system underneath this Hank area, which is a huge game changer for us, because, you look across different regions of the world, the Golden Triangle, for example, it's very unlikely you're going to find a massive porphyry system outcropping, just sitting there that hasn't been looked at before.
Mm-hmm.
I know that, like some of the guys like Phelps Dodge back in the 60s, they flew in fixed wing planes, and they basically did they flew grids over British Columbia looking for Gothans. And a lot of the deposits in BC were found just by geologists flying in planes, like Berg that Surge Copper has. That just sticks out like a sore thumb. On the flight to Terrace from Vancouver, you can see that sticking out. It's just, any geologist would be like, I need to go there. But everything like that has been discovered, and you need to look underneath cover. And Saddle is the only discovery in the Golden Triangle that's actually blind that's been made. And I think Hank is probably going to be the next one. Williams did actually come to surface, and there's outcrop where you see bornite. There's no signs of a porphyry here, other than the fact of you've got this large epithermal system that we believe is sitting on top of a porphyry. There's no actual disseminated copper mineralization or porphyry veins that come to surface in this area. So it was blind what we found, and it really, really elevates the potential of finding a large system underneath here. And, when you see a large epithermal system like that, and epithermal systems are related to porphyries, you often don't find the porphyry because it's too far to find it. Or maybe you don't find the epithermal system and you find the porphyry because the epithermal system has been eroded and you're just at that porphyry level. But the big key here is an epithermal system that's like 6 kilometers long. The amount of sulfide that is in this body, you need a big intrusion and a big porphyry complex to create that, just from a mass balance standpoint. Like the amount of fluid that needs to move through the rocks to add that much pyrite, the source of that is going to be a large porphyry or a number of porphyries. And what we see here validates that. It's a big game changer for us. Yeah. And I don't think it's necessarily going to be actually that deep. This was a long hole, but it was one hole, and we came into this from the side. And if we look at this from here, theoretically, a grade shell in here could easily be like this. They're generally at the top of an intrusion, and this is all conceptual here, but everything, it makes sense, which is generally the way to approach exploration is, don't try to overcomplicate things. And if there's a simple explanation, it's probably the best explanation.
Is that geologist speak for saying yes, I would mortgage my house to drill this target if I had to?
I think I was on some, maybe I was chatting with Robert Sin about this, but I was saying this is the closest I've come to doing that, but I'm still not doing that. I just got a $1,500 bill for my bet for my dog having diarrhea the other day. So,
Really?
so yeah, that's that's keeping me out of doing that.
Your dog is the OG Highway 37 Explorer though. He was there with you since the beginning, I think.
He was, unfortunately, in his dog life, this has been towards the end. He's getting on. He'll be 11 in a month, or less than a month, in 2 weeks. So, which is, as my vet said, he's on bonus time right now. Still full of piss and vinegar, but he hasn't got to spend as much time up here. And part also our exploration agreement with the Tal-10, we're not allowed to have domesticated animals on site. So he hasn't been up there for the last 2 years.
Who chases the bears away though? Tyler?
Well, you know what? I had an interesting experience. I guess last year with a bear. I was trying to get some drone imagery of something, and I saw a sow grizzly and two cubs heading towards one of our advisors, Stephanie Secor, who was mapping about a kilometer from us. And I just raced the drone right to her and kind of just pushed the bear away from her. And it worked incredibly well, actually. It was like a drone sheepdog. It prevented a potential issue quite well.
I want to see a video or it didn't happen.
Oh, I thought I was gonna be able to fund a drill hole with a YouTube video from that. I thought we'd get a million views out of that, but the SD card was full.
I'm both happy and disappointed that I didn't get to see any grizzlies on site. We saw a couple of black bears on our way there though, but it was funny. A friend of mine actually saw black bears at Beaver Creek. They filmed them, and didn't I show you that? I think I showed you that video. Like they were in the middle of the village, so they do
Oh
go
yeah.
everywhere.
Like about a month ago, I had a black bear in my front yard in Squamish. I got home from work and I'm sitting on the front porch, and I had to do a call. I don't know. It's like 6 o'clock. I'm having a phone call on my front porch, and my dog just books it. And I look over and there's a black bear about 40 feet from me, and he bites the bear right in the groin. Bear pisses his pants, runs to the other side of the front yard. I race, grab the dog, put him inside, and went and got a can of bear spray and got out and shooed the bear away. And it was acting pretty aggressive, and actually emptied the can of bear spray
Wow.
on it. And it didn't really do much, which gave me
With
a lot less confidence in bear spray.
with the lifestyle that you've got, because you told me you saw seals and stuff like that not too while ago as well. Just a trip not too far away from your house as well. You might a good marketing strategy for KFR might be just becoming a live streamer on Twitch or something like that, and then just live stream your entire life and tell people to buy KFR throughout the entire process.
Yeah, the only problem is I don't even know what Twitch is. So
Forget about it. Where is the potassic core, though? I mean, you say here that you've kind of it's again proximal margins of a porphyry core. Proximal margins doesn't sound like a porphyry core. So from there on out, just if we look at the screen again, how far away is that? Is it? Yeah, how many meters would you have to step out? And in terms of topography as well, like where I went there, where is this relative to where we were?
so we napped right around here.
Okay, yeah, yeah. And so
We had our
left
bush.
is essentially looking toward Mountain Ziza.
That's probably 10 kilometers out that way.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. Okay, yeah.
I'll just, it'll be easier to see if I just bring up the image. So we were up in here, and we drilled hole 6, which we're waiting until that is complete. And we haven't been able to see other assays, but once we have that, there'll be a batch out that includes hole 6. Hole 6 was drilled up here. This hole was drilled down here. So we've the nice thing is when you've got a big footprint to a target, you don't probably need to be as precise in exactly where you put the a drill hole, and we've looked at it, and I think we can adequately test this target with about 4,000 meters, or maybe even less. I think I would go up slope and probably 300 meters up slope and just drill back in, and then you'd probably do another one like that, and maybe one like that, and maybe one like that, and that would give it a pretty damn good initial test. Keep in mind this magnetic anomaly is about 1,800 meters long. So it's a big area, but we're already seeing copper mineralization, and I have the drill core in my office here, and I've spent every coffee break I have, or the washrooms downstairs on the warehouse floor, every time I go down there, I take a look at the drill core, and I'm like gaining more and more confidence with it each time I look at it. I did see most of it on site, but sometimes you need to look at things over and over again, and they'll just increase your confidence. I'll go back to the section here just to show you what I'm talking about, though, with these. So, coming up like this, that would be the next hole. And we can test this with 600-700 meter holes. So you're not drilling 950 meters.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, you've got a lot of gold mineralization near surface above here. You've got a pretty robust epithermal system that is something we're going to be working on evaluating over the winter. With epithermal systems, like LiDAR is a really important data set, and that's something that we did acquire this year. But we'll have that data sometime in November, we've been told, and we're going to be utilizing that and looking at putting together the high-graded gold story. At these gold prices, I think you could surprise people pretty quickly with what's here. And the historic intercepts here are quite impressive. This area here has a historic non-compliant resource from the 80s. We drilled a hole here through an intense hydrothermal breccia that was planned in the 1980s or proposed in the 1980s, but nobody was drilling that. And it looks pretty damn similar to the historic drill logs we have. We don't have that core, and a lot of it's just rubble here. But I think the gold story here is probably not appreciated by the market. But the one thing to keep in mind is it's the golden triangle. Newmont, Tom Palmer, or the ex-CEO of Newmont, referred to the area as the BC Copper Belt, but it really is the golden triangle. It's the most prolific gold area in British Columbia by a long shot. I don't know the number offhand, but it's got to be over 80% of the gold in BC is within the Golden Triangle. The largest undeveloped gold deposit in the world is KSM. KSM is the same age as this system. Our chief geo did her master's degree on KSM. Bruce Jack is connected to KSM. Scotty Gold is same age mineralization. The Premier Mine. There's a lot going at Snip, same age. The new discovery by Seabridge at their Iskut project. These are all same age systems. There's a lot of gold kicking around. People walked away from the gold story here around 1990 because the gold price was too low. Gold price is very high now. Things are quite different. So that's something we will be evaluating in tandem with porphyry exploration going forward. But we released results on in copper equivalent at Williams. It was pretty much 50-50 copper gold. So there's quite a bit of gold here.
What's the closest comp to this potential porphyry here?
So if you look at the systems we have, like if you look at Williams, for example, and you see those types of grades, we haven't hit the crazy high grade core of red Chris yet, but you've got the right rock types. So, some combination between a red Chris and a KSM, I would argue. Mitchell at KSM, which is the behemoth within KSM, it has incredible vein density as well, and it actually has good grades. It's just such a large deposit. They've taken in lower grades, which has brought the cutoff is quite low, so it's brought the grade down. But something in that ballpark would probably be, Saddle 2 is a good example. But large, that's the key. This doesn't, from what we've seen, it doesn't look like the clues don't show that it's a small system. The clues show that it's large. And when I say large, I'm talking, our working model is that we're onto a billion-ton scale system, not a 100 million-ton scale system.
What kind of grades?
It's way too soon to say that, but you can just look at examples in the region of what grades are, and what we've already drilled. And at Mary, you see a lot less copper than what we're seeing here. And one of the best holes at Mary is almost 300 meters from surface of 0.5 gram gold and I think 0.15 copper. I think if you go deeper there, you'll probably get into the copper. But what we're seeing here is at this depth, you are starting to see copper, and haven't got into a bornite zone yet. We didn't touch on bornite in the presentation or in the news release, because I did not want to create unrealistic expectations. But we did see bornite in a couple veins. So there is some bornite. I'll see if I can bring up a photo here to show you what I mean.
Right.
That's bornite right in there. So you can see some bornite within here, but it was a rare occurrence that we saw. Down at the end of the hole, though, you're seeing some pretty impressive mineralization. You're seeing actually quite a bit of molybdenite, and molybdenite would infer that you're still on the flanks of a system. You're not getting moly in the core of these golden triangle systems, but good chalcopyrite mineralization, and it's really the veins, though, that is what excites us. This type of vein density is very high. And when you're seeing this further away from a deposit where you're higher pyrite relative to chalcopyrite, yeah, the grade isn't going to be crazy. But when you transition into this type of vein, if you're getting this type of vein density not in the intrusion, wait till you get in the intrusion and it's predominantly chalcopyrite. And with that kind of grade, that's actually how you get red Chris grade. Porphyry deposits, they generally, like, vein density is kind of like the reduced intrusion related gold model. You look at Snowline, like the higher vein density, you're generally, obviously there's examples where you're not seeing that, but generally the more veins, the more metal you're getting. And once you get into the hot core of a system, if you're getting this type of vein density, things are going to be good. Show a couple other, like, here's some other. You are seeing potassic alteration in here, but it's not like all of the rock is pink. You're getting it associated with the veins. So it's pushing that out quite a ways from the intrusive core. This would be down at the bottom. Things are starting to get blacker. So you're getting biotite in here, but you're getting nice chalcopyrite veins through here. You're getting disseminated chalcopyrite, but you're getting a whiff of epidote too, which means you're still on the flank of the system. You're not going to get that in the heart of the potassic zone, but you're still seeing potassic, which is potassium feldspar. You're seeing potassic alteration associated with these veins being pushed out further from a deposit, and you're seeing copper being pushed out further, and a lot of magnetite. So it's a good oxidized system, which is what you want.
But yeah, is the fact that you get less bornite at Hank than you do at Williams, and I understand what that implies for temperature and oxidation, but what about does it tell you anything about core fertility, grade essentially at depth?
At Williams, bornite is confined to a core and it grades out to chalcopyrite. So the fact that we've seen a vein with bornite here indicates that you have the temperatures and the copper saturation to create bornite. So I don't see why we would not see bornite once we get into the core of this. What I'm getting at is we're dealing with a big system and we're on the flank of it, and it's going to take longer to grade into the best grade. But you're likely going to have economic grade further out based on what we're already seeing. So the prize is way bigger and the scale that could be way bigger. And once you get into given the amount of chalcopyrite you're already seeing in the vein density, when you get into the core of it, it's probably going to have better grades than Williams.
I'm asking about Hank because I'm thinking if Hank or Hank's center really is a different center than Williams, and I know you're thinking about that too. As in, does it mean clustering, or does it mean there's a single long-lived center there feeding these things that you've been coming up with?
Well, the whole trend is a long-lived mineral system. So
Mhm.
there's a 12-kilometer trend from, the southwest end of Hank all the way to Mary. That's a
Yeah.
12-kilometer trend, and we have age dates from Williams and Mary so far, and we've collected a lot more age dates. So you can take a sample from the molybdenite and get an age date run. We won't have those for a while, but we took samples from that Hank hole. We took samples from hole 6, the epithermal system that had some moly veins in it as well. And then we actually took it from a few other locations on the project. Um, that's something that retail might not care about, but major mining companies definitely care about that. And it also helps our exploration process. These are all related to one large magmatic event. And there's multiple centers within it. And I believe this is early stages of a bona fide porphyry district similar to KSM. I'm not saying there's another KSM in the Golden Triangle, um, but it's a legitimate porphyry district. Kind of similar to probably what you're seeing within the Joy district with like Aurora and all the different deposits on Amark's project. I think Canyon, Pine, all those different porphyries. That looks like a district too. Aurora is the only one that's really you know made its mark, and the other ones are not economic. I don't think the other deposits on Amark's ground, I could be wrong, but I don't think they've had intercepts even as good as Williams. Aurora is obviously better than that, and they've done a lot of drilling. That it's not like Aurora was the first thing they drilled on that project.
Mm.
They've done a lot of drilling, and as things progress, you're going to find more. The key is obviously you need to find something quickly to limit your dilution.
Yeah. And hopefully it's not flat lying either, because that raises questions, at least for me. What's the minimum amount of drilling you'd need to answer those unanswered questions? I know you showed some of the holes there that you might want to put in, but yeah, how many meters do you want to put into this thing to have a yes or a no, essentially?
Well, that area, like I don't think we need to drill a kilometer away from there. I think we're heading in the right direction right now. So I think a series of probably 200 to 300 meter step outs, probably 4 to 5 700-meter holes would give us a pretty damn good idea on whether this is real or not. And I think I'd be shocked if it isn't real. It's just the question is going to be, is the grade there?
Yeah. So
And
irrespective of what you see in the other holes that you still have to report this year, next year you raise money and you go and drill this thing as the first target, essentially. Is that kind of the plan?
I wouldn't like reveal our entire plan yet, yeah, until we get all our assays back. I would say though that like no matter what, we're going to find a way to drill this next year. I don't think it's going to be challenging. Like this is a very financeable target to drill. But I touched on before that and it's not like I just touched on it with gold at 4,000. I've said this. There's a reason why we did the LiDAR survey. We are interested in the high grade gold story there as well. Initially we were more focused on the structural epithermal veins, like the slightly deeper intermediate sulfidation, but the higher level disseminated gold at today's gold prices is kind of a no-brainer. And hole 6 has the potential to strengthen that once we get those assays. We'll see what it does. But our drilling isn't just going to be taking wildcat drill holes. It's going to be, I think we're going to be moving towards filling in some gaps and probably trying to reconfirm some of that near surface min, because there's a lot of really good grade near surface. I'll bring up an old map here. One sec. Slightly outdated here. This map, the grades aren't. It just doesn't have our recent data on it. But you can see in this upper pit area here, these are pretty damn good grades given they're all very shallow. These like 58 of 1.4, 49 at 2.83. These are right at surface pretty much. And this area is wide open and you're getting large gaps. Keep in mind, this is 1 kilometer here. You're getting pretty large gaps between drilling. You're getting 58 meters of 2 grams with including 18 meters of 4.9 out here. And that's probably a 500-meter gap to the next hole
Mm-hmm.
within a huge geochemical anomaly. And there's a lot of room for growth here, with potentially shallower drilling. So I think next year's program is probably going to be a combination of going about both things. We did raise critical metal flow throughs this year, so that limited us in looking for the potassic cores of porphyries. But I think there's a lot of value in here that we can bring forward with the new information we have from that LiDAR survey.
That's essentially where I was going with this, or thinking about, is what's the bare minimum amount of money you might have to raise in order to test this specific target.
The Hank,
Yeah,
the porphyry.
yeah.
Probably $5 million, $4 million. You could probably drill it.
Yeah, that's reasonable. Yeah.
And it's always like, that's the test, the cost of the test versus the prize, right?
That's true. Yeah. And hopefully at that point it's hey, good looking and not lost highway. I do want to talk about, I think like two people are going to get that joke, so I might want to clarify it, but it's Hank Williams.
I got it.
I hope you would, at least. Anyways, I did want to talk about alteration as well. Any evidence of a chloride replacing biotite, or versus sort of primary chloride propylitic, or what does that look like at surface there at Hank?
So Hank, the big thing with Hank is you've got a clay cap basically on that is obscuring a lot of things on top of, because you've got a lithocap on top of this large epithermal system, which is on top of a porphyry system, now that we know. And if you look at our geochemical maps, there's actually apparent dead zones. That's really just where you're in the lithocap environment and it's leached out and it's just clay alteration. And you get below that clay and you get into intense alteration right away. Not that the clay is intense alteration, it's just not metalliferous alteration, is leached. But you do get propylitic alteration around this area. What we're seeing in the hole we just drilled, though, you do get chlorite alteration, but that it's not a propylitic event. It's actually similar to what you get at Mitchell, where Gail, our chief geo, did her master's research. You're seeing like a chlorite, pyrite, chalcopyrite, magnetite event, which is an alteration assemblage they have there. Not every porphyry has the exact same alteration assemblage you'd see in a diagram if you go on Google, and that is one of them. There's an interesting paper on, or there's an interesting YouTube video by Steve Garwin where he talks about type 1 and type 2 porphyry systems. You can find that on YouTube. I think it's Ore Deposit Hub. And he talks about these type 2 systems that often actually have more pyrite, and they have a lot of chlorite, and they make a lot of the biggest deposits on Earth are the type 2 systems. And that's what this is looking like to us. It's a type 2 system.
Yeah. Okay.
You can maybe put a reference to that and people can dig into that on their own time. It's pretty technical.
But it is helpful. I've seen that as well. I do know what you're referencing. So if we're talking about potassic K-spar magnetite, where does that first appear downhole? Like how far down is it, and how does how does it evolve sort of when you go further downhole? How does the intensity evolve versus sort of the phyllic overprint?
The intensity definitely increases as you go downhole. I would say you're not in what I would call a potassic assemblage yet, or you're not in the potassic, like to be in a potassic zone. So this is something I'll just clarify. Like you can you can look at things like the potassic zone of a porphyry, which is your ore zone effectively. Yep. And then you can have potassic mineral assemblages, which would be like potassium feldspar, which give it the pink color. Yeah. Not always though. You can have gray potassium feldspar. And then you can have, you'd have biotite, you would have magnetite and copper minerals in there. So we're seeing veins that have potassium feldspar with them. They've got magnetite with them, in places biotite with them, and chalcopyrite, obviously. And we're seeing those, but you're not seeing it where the entirety of the rock yet is pink.
Right.
So it's like vein controlled alteration, not like pervasive alteration, which is what you'd expect when you're getting into the core of the system. And once you get into that, you're in ore.
Yeah.
So it's you got to be careful throwing around the word of like we hit potassic alteration. If we had said we hit potassic alteration and we hit mineralization on the flank of the system, which we did, then people might think, oh, that's the potassic core. The grade's not good enough. We didn't hit the potassic core. We hit veins coming off of potassic core. So you're heading in the right direction because you're getting more veins with that as you get closer.
You did get magnetite stringers toward the end of the deeper parts of that hole, I think, below 900, I think. Is it?
Quite a bit of magnetite throughout that hole from that intercept where we started seeing copper. There was magnetite actually at the bottom of hole 6 on the other side of this anomaly, about 1,500 meters away.
Is it additive or is it replaced by chloride hematite?
What do you mean by that? Like,
well, I'm talking about the magnetite stringers that you describe here. That's at least what I've written down. That you see toward the end. So I have it at 890 to 969 meters. So what you increasing chalcopyrite, pyrite, and early case bar magnetite stringers is what I've written down. Yeah. So is that additive or is it replaced by chloride hematite?
It's I guess additive.
Yeah. Is it?
Yeah. Like it's part of the hydrothermal system, and they're potassic altered veins effectively.
But essentially what I'm thinking here is it magnetite destruction that's sort of indicating, late oxidation telescoping or something else that would be farther away, or is it coming closer to the center? That's kind of where I'm coming from with this.
It's coming closer to the center. They're hotter veins, and they're hotter veins, and you're seeing some A veins as you get further in, which are likely traveling less distance from the core, and you're getting the B veins that are probably going a little further. There's a very clear vector that things are getting hotter as you go down hole, and one of the easiest ways to look at that is just you're seeing a higher percentage of chalcopyrite relative to pyrite. Obviously, though, like it goes in and out. Like you're probably going to see some. I've been looking at core here, and you see some zones where you get pretty good chalcopyrite higher up, and these are related to veins coming in.
Isn't it unusual for the pyrite shell to be? I think it's 20 to 30 in terms of intensity, I suppose you would call it here. I mean, wouldn't the highest chargeability be at the core to shell transition?
You're referring to 20 to 30 millivolt volts?
Yeah.
Value? Well, you can have a core that is 20 to 30 of a porphyry. You can also have a core that's like 12 to 15 of a porphyry. There's a lot of different variables at play. But the thing going on here, which is a little different, is that you have an epithermal system sitting on top of this that is also chargeable. Which I think is, it does complicate targeting here, in that the entire mountain is pretty much chargeable.
Yeah.
So what I'm getting at is that there's pyrite that's epithermal alteration, phyllic alteration from an epithermal system, as well as the phyllic alteration related to the porphyry system. I don't like you just got to look at what you see in core and correlate that with your geophysics. And we see very high pyrite further away, and then you're getting more chalcopyrite relative to pyrite, and the chalcopyrite is less chargeable. So you would expect we're going towards a hotter direction. You would expect the pyrite to decrease and the chalcopyrite to increase, which should mean the chargeability is actually going down.
I do want to ask about the epithermal veins that you have there at surface, and I will here in a second, but just so, because we're in the topic of the geophysics here, resistivity, sort of the resistivity core that you have, what is that? I mean, is it an intrusive Or could it be kind of a resistive cap of something else or something?
Let's bring that figure up again. This is the resistivity anomaly that
Yep.
sits right here. And, it's resistivity is measured in ohm meters. So down here would be very conductive. And then up here would be very resistive. And what we're seeing here is, it's a little bit conductive around like 230 or so, which is probably 240, 250, which is probably the range in here.
Yep.
And to us, that indicates a body where there's like an intrusion is going to be like a monzonite should be more resistive than the surrounding volcanic wall rock that it's coming into. And also quartz veins are more resistive. But if they didn't have metal in them, the resistivity would be way higher. So that like the sulfides within those veins are going to actually add some conductivity to it. So it's kind of buffering that reading. So the signature just fits with what you would expect. And the conductivity above it, that's going to be related to the epithermal system and the lithocap, which is a combination of, but then right at top, you're getting a little bit lower, which is the silica on top. But generally, this is clay alteration. Clay is highly conductive, and you're getting sulfides in there as well.
Mm-hmm. So it's not like graphite or something deeper there.
We haven't seen any graphite on the project here. No.
Okay. What does this look like in terms of structure and plumbing? I mean, I suppose you got to drill it to know it, but what's the thesis on the major faults or anything else that you're seeing?
So, we're on a major structure through here. And when I say a major structure, I mean, not necessarily something you can map at surface. We're talking about a basement structure, a long-lived structure that's been reactivated over and over again, something that fluids are coming up on a regional scale. Maybe not a deposit scale, but maybe like this structure we believe is focusing a large intrusive complex that is defining this district. And this trend goes for 12 kilometers where you get an almost like highly, highly anomalous geochemistry. And you've got Marriott at the far end of it. Within this area, though, we've got a few other different faults, and there's one running right through here, and there's another one that actually kind of runs right through here. And I would imagine these are more the ones that are focusing mineralization. So, that's a big part of it. There's also thrust faults, which is another component that we've been modeling, and we believe that this fault here is a pretty significant fault, and you've got thrust faults that are coming off this way. So I'll just create a section view here. Say you've got out here, so you've got a big mountain or whatever, and then say you've got this fault here, and you've got thrust faults that are coming out this way, and fluid is coming up here and going in there, and that's probably where you're getting a porphyry. And that's right where this would sit.
Right. Where's the epithermal veins? Where are they relative to that?
So, one sec. So
on this map,
you've got a broad zone through here of intermediate sulfidation, epithermal mineralization.
Mm-hmm.
Those are drill holes. These are actually channel samples. More channel samples in this area. These are drill holes down here that are disseminated epithermal mineralization. So these are vein, like pretty structurally focused vein corridors where you're getting some pretty damn good grades, actually. I'll just bring up that old map again so you can see. So some of the values in here, like 9 meters of 6.1 include and 43 meters of 3.3, 15 meters of 7.2 plus 64 of 1.97, 4 meters of 15 grams. There's actually some high grade silver, 0.6 of 3,200. So there's good grades within that, which is actually that zone there. And then further along strike, towards this Kype area, you've actually got some like bonanza grades, zero point 0.8 meters of 133 grams, also 24 of that. So you got good mineralization in here, and that is deeper epithermal mineralization by a few hundred meters than what you're getting on top. But this trend on top, it's likely going like way out like this. It's likely a big blanket, and there's big areas. I'm completely messing up this image here, but there's big areas that are untested within here. And I think like what we've continuously kind of been trying to do on this project is take a step back, and as we take these steps back, we're increasingly gaining confidence in the scale of this system and the potential for it to be larger than previous operators thought, but also than what even we thought. And seeing this big porphyry in here, seeing the intensity of alteration in this breccia we drilled up here in hole 6, it really is kind of hammering home the significance of how big this system is. And it probably actually goes over to this side of the valley over here. You just got a lot of clay alteration and the odd landslide here that is kind of messing up the geochemical signal. But it's a big system.
Yeah. Where does the river run through again? Where that we flew over it, I think, when I was there.
So this is a pretty low volume creek coming through here,
Yeah.
and another one out here.
Yeah, that one. So how important are these two? I think you and I have talked about this, but I noticed under our video someone had asked about it, so I thought might be worth bringing up again if people are thinking about it. How important are they in terms of let's call it ESG in general, but just having them there? How challenging is it? How do you deal with it? Yeah.
So we did not do it this year. Our plan is to do it next year, kind of baseline environmental studies. But I would be shocked if there's fish in this creek. There's massive like waterfalls that fish could not get over below them, and we're a long ways from salmon where we are. This all drains into the Iskut River. So this area right here drains. So we're right on a drainage right here. And you've got massive canyon right in there that I don't think fish are getting up. And then you got another massive canyon like right here. And then you hit the Iskut River here. And I forget exactly where it is on here, but somewhere between, here probably and down off the screen here, there was a massive landslide in the past that has actually blocked salmon from coming up this river. So in terms of the Golden Triangle, you're quite a ways from salmon habitat relative to various other projects. Like, Galore would be a lot closer to the Stikine River, which is right there. Seabridge Gold's new discovery at Iskut would be right on the banks of the Iskut River, like literally on the banks of the river. They might even drilled underneath it. Eskay Creek is much closer to the Iskut River. Red Chris is much closer to the Clapan River, which has salmon in it. So I would say it's pretty well located. That being said, it still is British Columbia, and it's you still have to take every measure to meet the highest environmental standards. So it's not like it's in the desert. So it's not it. Maybe it's a risk. I don't see it as a huge risk here.
Yeah. No more birds' nests and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's that. We actually looked at towards the end of the season. Once we'd already pulled out, we considered going back in and getting archaeologists and biologists to go pre-clear sites and have loggers go in there and clear them, so it'd be easy to build a pad, like get us ahead of schedule next year. But the cost just didn't make sense. It's inefficient when you're doing things like that without having a program going on. Would have been nice to, if we had $30 million in the bank, we would have done that. But if we had $30 million in the bank, we would have kept on drilling until Christmas time.
Hopefully no snails either. Did you see there was something yesterday, I think, about a there's a company facing about $300,000 in regulatory fines for something to do with not protecting, not protecting a snail or something like that, an endangered snail, like not doing enough in terms of fencing or something like that.
Where was that? In BC?
Yeah, it was in BC. I'll send you a screenshot right after this. I'd seen it on Twitter. Pretty funny stuff. So you don't have any of that, I hope.
No, occasionally in my garden, but no,
Yeah.
no, the in the spring you have bird nesting in northern Canada, so you need to be surveying for birds. And if you have a nesting bird, you got to move your drill pad. Um, for next year where we're drilling, luckily it's a big target. If you have to move your pad by 25, 30 meters, it's not a big deal.
Hmm.
It really doesn't matter. And a lot of the gold areas, there's quite a bit of historic disturbance there. There's actually old bulldozer roads all over the top of Upper Hank there.
Yeah.
They actually walked a bulldozer in there in the 1980s in the winter and
Mhm.
and put roads all through there. So, potentially you might actually be able to go and uh, modernize the drilling there by confirming some of it with a track mounted RC rig. That would be quite cost effective. It's pretty like all that mineralization is generally within 100 meters of surface. It's open, but I mean, like you could just go in there and at least bring all those historic holes up to modern standards so they could be incorporated into a resource.
That's actually maybe within the lines of talking about this epithermal stuff here, because there's gold there, right? The question is how much, and I suppose everyone can do back of the envelope math for themselves. But why don't you do it kind of as a, I don't know, scoping study, or bring out something small just to, or maybe not small, I don't know, but just bring something out to the market, being like, we have at least that, and we think there's a porphyry beneath it. Is that like, could that be a corporate strategy?
Yeah, well, I think it would, even from like a potential future development standpoint, if you have a nice gold system on top that is pitable
Hmm.
and it continues down to a porphyry, that really changes the story from a strip standpoint. But I also think that like there's a lot of gold on this project, and given the way gold price is going right now, it would be foolish if we didn't allocate some of our resources over the winter to evaluating that, but also if we don't focus on drilling some of that
Yeah.
next year.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something we will do. And I think we're in a pretty damn good position here, having this type of historic mineralization that is quite frankly wide open in so many different directions. I know that's a very overutilized thing, but when you've got 500 meters between good drill holes and continuous geochemistry and alteration between them, that really is the case. Um, this area just hasn't ever seen a crack, a really good systematic, hard, aggressive push on it in a good market.
Could what you're seeing there, though, the epithermal stuff at surface, could that suggest telescoping, or so? Are you seeing the structure at depth essentially to correspond with that late telescoping, and I don't know, probably vertical metal zonation or something like that? Or how does that, yeah, how does that correspond to structure?
Well, what like from a telescoping standpoint, what we see here is that so part of why I think this area was overlooked within the Golden Triangle is because uh, there's some discrepancies in the regional mapping, and basically you've got a lot of mineralization hosted in slightly older rocks than in a few other areas in the Golden Triangle, and the reason why it's hosted in slightly older rocks is because during the like 200 million years ago, say, uh, the area we were like the whole Golden Triangle area was island, it was island arc. So they were islands, like call it like Papua New Guinea or whatever. And where we were was higher up. Like, if you go to Papua New Guinea, say we were up in the Grasberg level, we were up in the mountains, and the rocks we were at, um, it basically just brought all the rocks higher up, and they were already there. And then these porphyries came into them. So kind of what I'm trying to get at is that this area was a highland area, and this area continuously through porphyry development experienced a lot of uplift. And what that did was, as the porphyry is formed first, but the ground's being uplifted and it's being eroded, and then the epithermal system is forming, and that in effect is telescoping, and it's compressing the distance between an epithermal system and a porphyry. And we already have direct evidence of that, of seeing epithermal mineralization within it, like very close proximity elevation wise to Williams, where you're getting potassic alteration. Because I think epithermal mineralization is happening at a couple hundred degrees Celsius. Porphyry potassic is like 600-700 degrees Celsius. You don't have a 400-500 degree temperature gradient over a couple hundred meters naturally. You get that with time and compressing that distance, because they happen at different times. So I think I don't know if we're going to get high grade epithermal veins within a porphyry, like you see, say at Philo, where you got that like beautiful silver zone within the porphyry. I don't know. Like we'll have to drill. But you do get some pretty high grade veins within some of these systems, though. Like we drilled 3 or 3.1 meter, I think 3 meters of 811 grams silver within Mary a couple of years ago. So you are seeing some of these veins within it. But the big key from our standpoint is just the fact that it's not that far to find a porphyry, and they could be close enough that they could actually potentially be in the same mine.
What happened at Mary those 3 years ago? That was 2020 season of 2022. I think that was one of your
2023.
Okay. Yeah, what happened there? I mean, why was it not there the way you had expected it? Maybe worth kind of the a recap on that.
Yeah, let me just get up a map of that to show you.
Because you still like it, as far as I understand it, and you know much more about it now than you did before you started drilling it. Yeah.
No, Mary's a pretty compelling system, and there's pretty good gold grades at surface here. It's a big project though, so we can only do so much in any given year. But our intention is to poke a few holes into the Mary area next year for sure. So Mary, you've got a big geochemical anomaly as well. This is copper labeled on here, but it's a big gold anomaly as well. And then you've got an area that is a bit of a dead zone here, which we're working on the geological explanation, but we think it's a cover sequence through here. And you're getting pretty respectable grades through here, given that most of these holes are from surface. Like this hole right here is from surface. So last year we drilled a hole, or not last year, 2 years ago, we drilled a hole back out here, and the grade wasn't as good. So that might indicate that we're on the edge of the system there, and that we should have actually been going back in the direction of historic drilling, but deeper. But we also drilled these like over 1 kilometer step outs down here and hit pretty damn anomalous mineralization, like 162 meters of 0.2 gold with a bit of silver and pretty anomalous zinc, which would indicate you're on the edge of a system. Cliff also hit some, interesting numbers. They're not ore grade, but they're clear evidence of a system. And last year we went in there and we added deeper IP to get deeper coverage on the area. Mm-hmm. And it looks like we're really just on top of a system here, and that there's a lot more room at depth here to go deeper. So it is deeper tests of this, but the cliff area, we've got a belief that there's actually a low angle pattern here based on the veining, and we'd like to go in there. Again, things we're going to work on over the winter here. This wasn't our highest priority this year. Williams and the Hank area was, but as I've touched on, we're trying to systematically go through this and pick away at targets here, and you never know which one's going to hit. And I think a great recent example of that is the Aurora story at Amark. And I don't want to get into trouble for saying this, but like the stories I've heard from people working in the Toodoggone were what I've heard is that it was a pretty lower tier target actually. And it wasn't a priority, and the helicopter pilot could not go where they wanted to go, and he he's like, well, I can take you here. And they drilled it and the first hole hit. So they just went, balls to the wall, and it could be wrong on that. That's the rumor I've heard. But regardless, even if that isn't the case, they tested so many other targets before they tested that. And often the first thing you hit isn't necessarily the best. And, you kind of got to work your way through targets and reduce the risk on them through various different surveys as you're going. That being said, William, the Hank Porphyry, it looks like the real deal here, and we've only got one hole into it, so it's not actually tested yet.
You might want to see if their helicopter service is available so that you can hire him as well, make that discovery as well. I hope they give him some options, though, if that's true.
Well, I'm sure it was still a target. I just think, from what I heard, that influenced, going to it when they did.
Yeah. Good.
Could be wrong. Could be wrong, and I don't want to get in trouble here for saying that. But I think there's a lot of cases like that where, like, the first target isn't, and even what looks like the best target isn't necessarily the best thing. Like SK took however many holes, over 100 holes. Aurelian took over 100 holes at Fruta del Norte. I can tell you right now, if the Hank Porphyry is there, it's not going to take us 100 holes to find it. Porphyries are a little different than at SK, a discrete BMS. They're big systems, and it's either there or it is. It's really just, is the grade there is always going to be the question.
Dip in orientation, by the way, of the porphyry, is it what you have there is obviously just an example and kind of a, more or less a guess of how it is, but could it be different? Like, could it be, because it's pretty, I don't know if you know what I mean, but it's pretty vertical, the conceptual porphyry that you have here. I can open it and just see it myself as well. But could it be more flat or something?
Yeah, like it could be, but we have no indication to assume otherwise. And the porphyry at Williams is fairly vertical.
Yeah. I'm only asking because I'm just thinking about well, essentially what I'm thinking about is how big is the chance that you miss it next year? Because you mentioned 100 holes. You're not going to need 100 holes, you said. But yeah, how big is the chance you would miss it, and kind of dip in orientation can play tricks on you as well, as far as I understand it?
I would say very low odds. Very low odds. The question is going to be, is the grade?
Yeah.
What is the grade? We're very encouraged by what we see, and like a high degree of confidence. Still exploration though. So
yeah, of course. Been a really good overview though. And thank you so much for doing this. It was great and in depth. What am I forgetting to ask you? What else did you want to talk about that I'm failing to bring up?
I think that was pretty comprehensive. It was quite technical. I think the key to point out though is just the fact that we've only put one drill hole out, and we've got a lot of data yet to come, and we've got this massive land position in the Golden Triangle with a ton of good targets, but also this huge gold potential on it, plus two other projects that are looking pretty attractive in this market right now. So, and the amazing technical team and whatnot. So it's, I would say the company is very well positioned for a bull market now, which was pretty damn clear we're in a bull market now.
Do you have 200 years of combined experience though? That's the only thing I want to know.
At what? At what? I think that should be the question. What do you have 200 years of experience at?
That is an absolutely excellent question that I'm going to bring into my arsenal there for other interviews.
Scamming people. There's still so much market inefficiency out there. I see companies that are still worth 2 times what we have on grab samples with no drill permit, with a pretty piss poor technical team and frenzy, and you can see through it pretty easily by the amount of money a lot of these companies spend on marketing and whatnot. And so there's still a lot of market inefficiencies, and I guess that's just always going to be the way of the industry, unfortunately, and it's always going to cause people to get burned and probably never come back to the industry. So yeah. Things are still the same in that regard, despite gold being at these prices.
Well, it is a rough industry for sure. And there's just so many moving particles. And I always talk about that. Yeah. No, I appreciate you doing this. I'm not going to keep you all day. Thank you so much for doing this, and hopefully speak to you again soon.
Thanks, Antonio. Have a good weekend.
And as always, thanks to everyone for watching Resource Talks. I have a couple of more things to say, though. The fact that this company was interviewed here today does not mean that they're necessarily a good or a bad company. I'm not here to endorse nor attack anyone. I am simply here to ask some questions. If you find that I have failed in asking a question that you would have liked to hear an answer to, which will happen as I'm not an experienced interviewer, please let me know and I will try to correct that mistake in a future interview. As mentioned at the beginning, please understand that mineral exploration and development is an extremely risky business. Losing money is the norm and should be the expectation. This is a very complex sector, and the performance of individual companies typically depends on many different moving particles, including company-specific factors like geology, financing ability, and many others, really, as well as particles that are outside of the company's control, like geopolitics, macroeconomics, commodity prices, and many more, most of which are nearly impossible to fully understand. Moreover, these companies that typically get interviewed on Resource Talks are in the pre-revenue stage, which means they rely on the public markets for the financing of their operations, which could result in shareholder dilution. Furthermore, as a general rule of thumb, you'll be better off understanding that all company communications online, albeit this interview or their website and their presentation and their social media accounts, or even the social media accounts which you thought were your friends and then told you about a stock, everything really that these companies do is intended as marketing. And although I do not make buy or sell recommendations because there is a clear conflict of interest given the nature of my business, many out there do. And you should be aware of that inherent bias and you should be careful out there. That bias is not always going to be clearly disclosed with everyone out there. So it is safer for you anytime you're watching any type of company specific content to approach it with a dose of skepticism and assume that the party telling you about it is biased in at least some shape or form, because there will always be a bias. Again, albeit clear or not. So always ask yourself what the incentive of your counterparty is and never rely on them regardless of their incentives, but instead double check if what they're saying is true, again, by using setterplus.ca. The fact that I have no idea what I'm doing should already be clear to you at this point. I am not saying this to make jokes or laugh with myself. I just simply do not have a long enough track record of consistent investment profits. So I should, under no circumstances, be considered an authority on anything. Again, although this may sound amusing to you, believe me, it is not amusing and it is not intended as a joke. I'm simply pointing out a fact and warning you not to rely on anything I do or say. Unfortunately, at least to my understanding, nobody out there has any special abilities. The CEOs do not possess any superior knowledge, and they cannot know about what will go up, what will go down, or what will go in circles. Some people even believe that to be rule number one on Wall Street. Nobody really knows. None of us know whether any of the company's activities will result in a success, again, given that we're talking about high-risk activities where most of the times it ends in failure. So unfortunately, try as I may, I won't always catch all red flags or all challenges with the companies. So even if I did ask a few tough questions in here, don't rely on this being all of the tough questions. Again, these are complicated startups with many moving parts, and I am conflicted given the nature of this business. Therefore, I cannot guarantee the quality of anything presented in this video, and you cannot hold me responsible for any losses or damages stemming from the way you decide to use this interview. Viewers, listeners, and readers acknowledge and agree that the information presented herein did not constitute a solicitation or an offer to buy or sell any security or investment or to participate in any trading strategy. Resource Talks and all parties involved in the management of the business strictly disclaim any and all liability for losses and or damages, whether direct, indirect, special, or consequential, or other consequences, however so caused, arising out of any use or reproduction of the content published by Resource Talks or any decision made or action taken in reliance upon it. By consuming this content, all consumers vow to release Resource Talks and all parties involved in the management of the business from all claims, proceedings, or consequences. This is all to say, I know it's a lot of lawyer talk, but this is all to say that you shouldn't blindly trust me or anybody on the internet, and you should do your own research. Once again, social media is meant for entertainment. It is setterplus.ca where you do your research. That's where you'll find a company's official filings, and I encourage you to read and analyze the Management Information Circular, the financial statements, the Management Discussion and Analysis, and whenever available, the NI 43-101 technical documents. If you don't understand everything in those documents, the chances of you losing money are even higher than they normally are in this space. And as mentioned earlier, the chances of even the best analysts in this sector losing money are extremely high, since this is venture capital and it is not for everybody. I'll leave you with one of Charlie Munger's quotes, which I wish I had listened to more often earlier on, which says, quote, "If you don't understand it, don't do it."